Hey guys, VaulSC here. Hope that you're having a good week. So some of my friends are practicing for a little tournament coming up in the next month or two where they're going a bit crazy. They are going to be playing games of Infinity N4, but at the 400 points level, which is unusual because, as we know, it's normally 300 points that you get to build your lists. Second thing that they're going to be doing is they are going to be allowing the full 20 units that you'd usually see in N3. As you guys know, in N4 you're restricted to 15 units, but it's going to be 400 points with 20 units, and they're even going to be using the red deck for the classified, but that's another story altogether. Now, I'm personally not going to be attending that tournament. It's in another town, can't be bothered going down, but I've been sort of helping my friends do some practice games for it. And I decided to just make this YouTube video to talk a little bit about the format. I'll briefly skip through a little bit of a batrep, but I won't go into a lot of detail about it. But the main thing, first of all, is that at 400 points, the game is a little bit more forgiving on dice, and that's something I've always been a fan of. I've never really liked playing low points value Infinity, and for new players, obviously it's good to start out with some really small low points games to get good at it, but try and progress past that and graduate from that as soon as you can. The reason why is that Infinity is a game which is really heavy on variance. Luck is very impactful in a lot of games, and that's even more so the case when there are fewer models on the table. Like, if you imagine, if it's just my one line trooper against your one line trooper, a bad dice roll is the end of that little, that little exercise, right? Similarly, if we each have 5 line troopers and we're practicing like the face-to-face roll mechanics, one person getting a reactive turn crit is just going to settle it a lot of the time. And that's in principle why lower points value games just aren't really as good. There are fewer decision points and luck has more of an impact. But the opposite is true when you play some of these bigger games. So at 400 points, you have something go wrong in one face-to-face roll. There's so many other units of value which are still going to impact the game that you can sort of come back with. And that's something that I really, really like. It also allows us to sort of move beyond the meta of the best 15 models. You're now talking about the best 20 models in your army list and your faction when we're talking about this format, because it's 400 points and 20 units. So it's kind of cool. Allows you to put a few other things in your list that you normally wouldn't. But again, it's still the same principle of list building. So if you look at your chosen faction and you cherry pick the best 15 units as normal, and you just move down the rankings really and come up with the next 5. So I'm just going to show you guys briefly a little Jing list that I put together for a practice game on this, just to give you an example of sort of how I approach the problem. Excuse me. So right here you've sort of got the meta sort of Jing list anyway, with a few other little additions. So Sujan with heavy shotgun up there, he's just a really strong piece in the current meta. Shotgun's typically better in the hands of a good player because all you really need to do is to be able to get him in range, and he's so fast and resilient and able to do that. And the shotgun forces your opponent into that horrible situation where they either have to dodge to avoid the 3 templates, or face-to-face you, in which case you're getting 3 shots at BS 20. With the range, or -3 for cover possibly. But he can also be used as a reactive piece, so, I mean, all around he's one of the better models in the faction. Cool thing is, with the motorized bounty hunter, you can put him there in a little duo, so given that I have the points and the units to do that, normally, I'd have so much competition for the slots here, I might not actually worry about taking something like the bounty hunter in a Jing list, but there are so many choices there that it sort of makes sense to pop him in there. And the good thing about this, of course, is that with the Red Fury, you're supporting the shotgun, so when you're moving into that short range, you've got a gun that can actually shoot well beyond 8 inches, so I really quite like that. Always have to take the Dalyung Lieutenant. I think that in this format, it's even more important than usual to take a lieutenant that is safe, right? So if we just think about this for a sec, going into Lost Lieutenant when you have 400 points on the board and 20 units is even more damaging and more impactful than normal because you're just missing out on such a huge momentous turn. I mean, to put an extreme version on it, imagine if you're playing, I don't know, 1,200 points. on a really massive table, and everything's controlled by the one lieutenant, and somebody just assassinates your lieutenant, and that's 1,200 points worth of stuff, which is all using irregular orders. Maybe some veteran out there, but you see what I mean, right? That would just be much more disastrous than it would be in, say, a 300-point game where you can still have a bit of a turn with those irregular orders, right? So Dao Ying's really, really important. And at this level, playing in any faction where you can have a camo lieutenant is just really, really important, right? So, that is a point to note. Celestial Guard Monitor on the 4 Guangxi. Again, we've got 20 units, so it's fine to include these cheap guys to support everybody else. Shaolin to have some sort of smoke in there, and of course the sensor bot with the current edition, the I forget what you call them, Takimoto's I think it is, with the free tactical awareness is the way to go. Classic meta Hack Tower HMG, really, really solid and important there to use NCO with the 2 lieutenant orders from the Dao Ying. And by and large, most of what you'd normally expect is in there, the 2 Long Yars, the Hundun. I've got a Lu Duan in here just because it's just so good at clearing mines and crazy koalas in the middle of the table, and it can put a deployable repeater out there for my ninja, which I've got. I like having a few things with repeaters, and of course a hacker in there somewhere, so the ninja is the hacker. Just because in a big format like this, I'm expecting other enemy hackers around, because this is a format where you've got such expensive stuff on the table. So most people are going to be taking hackers to be able to do something about it, and having a killer hacker in there is good counterplay to that. Armand, I think, is the only other thing here which is a little bit interesting, because I'm taking the Hack Tower. I like having a doctor with a helper bot, and Armand is something which is just a really solid ARO, and I can easily afford him in this sort of format, and it's a way to spend the SWCs. And there are a lot of matchups that he's quite good at. I was thinking of Major Luna, because she's quite good against bear pods, but I had the points to upgrade all the way up to Armand. And, I mean, this kind of list is so good defensively. You've got so many things out there, all the mines and bits and pieces to defend. And the long-range arrow there with Armand takes care of some of the other things that might sort of just hang back a bit. And even if you lose them, it's just, you've got so much stuff to keep playing with. I'm kind of fine with it. It's quite hard to kill him, though. Obviously, you've got the Mimetism -6, and he's got the Symbiont Armor. And you've got a doctor nearby, and as long as you don't overcommit him, he can be quite cool. You can also deploy him very close to where the hack tower is, and potentially shoot back at him with your hidden deployment and your sniper as well. So I thought that's sort of one way to approach this interesting format of 400 points. Just take all the meta stuff and then add in a few other things there, and you've with Yu Ching especially, you've got a really defensive kind of list. But with the combo of the Sushian and the Biker, there's at least one way to attack. I quite like having the Luduan in one group where you can move forward and clear a lot of the annoying sort of traps and mines and bits and pieces in your one lot of orders in one group, and then move out with the bike and the robot cat in the other group and try and do some damage. I'm not going to go through like a massively big battle report here, but I thought I would just pick through the game that I did play. This was on the mission Frontline. Again, Frontline's a bit of an interesting one because it's still very polarized in terms of either you go second and you just take no damage and you easily win by moving into the zones in the last turn, or you just cripple them with an Alpha Strike and make sure they just don't really have much by the end of the game. So I put my Hundun just covering a fire line here, the Hack Tower towards the middle of the table, the Ninja also right through the center. The good thing about the Ninja is that you don't even have to use them. If some enemy hackers come nearby or there's an enemy repeater, you can bring them out. But if not, he just reveals at the end of the game, and I'm taking second turn here, so yeah. I think I chose deployment and my opponent went first, so I've got second turn, which is a big advantage, unless he can really cripple me. Bit of a table layout here. I'm on the left-hand side. Just going through here from the zoomed out sort of view, you can see Sujian is in the center. Same with the Luduan. Hack Tower is sort of deployed. I'll just see if I can edit this photo. Does this work? Here we go. I still don't like the format for this. So this is obviously the Sujian here. Then you've got the Ludan, that's the real Ludan with a couple of like hollow echoes over here. So the hack tower is deployed in the hidden deployment spot there, but to see through a few small gaps with the Hundun hidden deployed there, shooting through that little sort of long fire lane with the Ninja on this little little spot here. So I'm really just setting up to defend. You've got a couple of long yards on both sides with these mines here supporting it. Liberto's just going down in the center. Armand will sit back right over here, able to shoot through a pretty long fire lane gap through there. And just generally, against O12, it's a bit easier because, you know, they're not the most aggressive faction. They don't have a lot of really, really good attack pieces. So that's the right-hand side with the Lieutenant. Long yards there. Sujan through the middle. Yeah, already basically went through all of this. The red deck classifieds are really, really hard to do. So I usually don't really bother with them. And most opponents aren't really going to get much done with them either way. It's going to be almost impossible to get all four. So the game's generally going to be won by the person controlling the middle zone anyway. So opponent moving up with a, I think this is a normal regular hacker serious team. HVT on the side of the table. This Omega is actually Catherine Cho, and he's got Nauf, which is actually a really good piece. I think Nauf is actually pretty good for O12, since they don't have a lot of other really good quality pieces. Nauf's really been buffed by that +1 burst. It must have a Lambda Doctor back there with his Gamma. We've both got these little F12, what are they called? TR bots that have a combi rifle. Both of us taking these bounty hunter bikes, of course. I think he's got a regular Gamma hacker, and that Valkyrie is just a Varangian. With, of course, the O12 trooper at the back here. One thing that's been happening, our little sort of practice meta of 400 points, is that I think one of our buddies was practicing a lot of Nomads with a Hellcat deployable repeater and or a Heckler fast spanner just to kill people's lieutenants, because it was such a big difference. I've got Armand represented by this guy right at the back, and he's got a bike which he just moves out with. And of course, as reserve troopers, the Zeta. A lot of tags go around at this format just because you can afford them with a whole lot of extra points and SWCs. So just trying to get some kills. So his first turn, he basically just revealed a long yarn and shot it, moved out with his bikes and shot at my TR bot. But because it deployed so carefully and defensively, he just couldn't really do very much. So making the mistake here of moving the Sirius into the middle of the table, not something you want to do. Realistically, you want to be trading with your opponent, moving into their deployment zone, or just doing nothing. Just hanging out in the middle of the table is not good. So after he moved up with a few troopers, revealed some mines, got very else little done, covering a fire lane here with the Gamma. Switches over to my turn. I just moved my Ninja, and I just want to talk about this play here. He left his little dog repeater in range of my killer hacker, and he's got two regular hackers on the table. There's the Kappa hacker, and I think it's a Cyber Ghost or whatever he's got there. Both are normal hackers, so I split my burst through the repeater. And the reason why I think this is a good play is that I've got Surprise Attack and Trinity, and all he's really got is the firewall benefit of the repeater, subtracting 3 from my face-to-face and my damage. And worst case scenario is that if I fail here, my Ninja gets isolated, but if I succeed, I just get kills. And the Ninja's still going to be camping in the middle of the table, even if he's isolated, and it will force some orders off him to come after me. He doesn't have Trinity to remove the Ninja, so all in all, this is actually quite strong. And with 2 dice going into one of the hackers initially, the chances of me actually getting a kill here is really, really good. Unfortunately, what did happen, though, is I got quite unlucky, and the Ninja did get isolated, and I didn't get any kills. But it's just luck. You've got to think about the game in terms of expected value, not just in terms of the actual outcomes you get. Had I been in that situation, again, I would 100% do that same play again and again. The Liberto moving forward, though, some people think that the Liberto is fine. I think it's just one of those units which is just so good at trading. You know, you spend 8 points in it, and it's so easily able to kill an important model. I probably should have made this play first, to be honest, but he moves up, kills the enemy hacker here with a shotgun, and then just trades for him and dies. Got the machinist, sorry, not the machinist. What do you call this guy? The Monstrucker laying down a little koala. But yeah, that play there with the Liberto, it's just so easy to make. There's so little your opponent can do to stop that from happening. Shotguns being so powerful in that they, force your opponent to either take a dodge or a face-to-face roll, and you get to choose after they've declared their ARO. Just very, very strong. Okay, so my bike actually has a sniper. It's rolled up randomly on the booty chart. It's got a sniper, and that's another thing that makes these motorized bounty hunters so good, is that they have a good profile and they're very cheap, and they can sometimes get a very handy gun. So I'm just moving out here and sniping somebody with my sniper rifle. There you go. Quang Chi's moving in the middle of the table, setting up a guy here trying to synchronize with the HVT. But in general, just don't really have to do very much. Moving up the sensor bot, going to the middle here, going to suppression fire actually. So that's just covering off very thin lane, but he is prone, just making him more annoying to deal with, and setting a few guys up preemptively in that middle strip of the table. And my opponent just really can't do very much. So he's moving around trying to complete a classified. This doesn't actually work with his medikit. And the Zeta then moves out and tries to get an angle onto my Takamoto there, but he's just too low to the ground. He's behind that wall. He's prone. Still couldn't get line of sight to him. So the Zeta kind of has to waste a turn here. And if you can't really get much damage done in the first couple of turns in the game on this mission, then it's generally the player going second who's going to win. He's trying right here to bring in his little lawkeeper bot. Everybody's just trying to dodge though. So he does manage to shoot down the other long yard with his biker, but not much else is achieved. Does go after Armand, but Armand actually beats him, so the biker gets hit. Then he drops his crusher here with short range crusher with a shotgun or something, and this is in the back of like a Guangxi. I do have a hack tower right there, which I obviously don't want to reveal, but he's pushing around the corner and firing like a Panzerfaust. This is just a really Hail Mary sort of going for luck kind of move. One Panzerfaust from his side against one Panzerfaust in return from my my Sujian. I do get hit though, and because of the weird interaction between NWI and remote presence, the Sujian actually takes 3 wounds but doesn't die, because essentially the second level of unconscious on the NWI is basically just swapped out for the NWI state. It's a bit of a weird interaction, but the Sujian is fine here and just gets into cover, revealing also my Lu Duan just to shoot back at him. This is his second turn, so I'm willing to sacrifice just about anything just to slow him down, because that third turn is just going to be a matter of me putting more stuff in the middle than him and winning pretty easily that way. So Crusher is engaged in close combat by a Yudbot dodging into base contact with him. That's fun. His Zeta trying to reposition, get to a better spot for that next turn. So I think the Crusher does attack this bot in close combat and kill it, or something to that effect, or dodges out of close combat. And that brings it round to my turn here, where the Hack Tower just moves out in front of him. He can't really do very much. Hack Tower just moves to beyond 8 inches and then shoots at him, using the NCO orders, which is very efficient, and kills the Crusher. Then he moves out to shoot down the Gamma. Initially, the Gamma shrugs off a few shots, but one sort of spike in the luck there takes him down, and the Hack Tower moves back here. And Recamos just gets ready for that last turn. My opponent, because he sort of misplayed the Zeta, left him out in partial cover, and there's nowhere for the Zeta. By the way, the Zeta's right up here at the spot here. The Zeta has nowhere to go into total cover with the Guts move. The sniper rifle from the bike literally just outranges it and shoots it like 4 or 5 times and destroys it, which kind of seals the game there. So a little bit of misplay from the Zeta, but sometimes these bikes just get a really good roll, and the sniper rifle's a good example of that. And that's basically it. There's not too much left to say about this game, to be honest, because once it comes around to my turn 3, like after he attacks me with his guys in his third turn, my turn 3, I don't even really need to spend any orders. I've already got more stuff in the zones than him. So that is kind of how the game played out. But I wanted to share this with you, just give you guys a bit of a look at what Infinity is like at a higher points level. One disadvantage and danger of this is that it can take a bit longer to play these games. Like you've got to maybe set a bit more time aside or play your games a bit faster. So in a tournament setting, it can be a bit precarious. Would recommend using clocks if you have them. But it was cool. You don't necessarily need a larger table. You can afford to put a couple of units in your list that you normally wouldn't. A lot of the game is still very much the same in terms of the meta. But yeah, it does feel like there are a few more decision points to make than normal, which is always really good. And luck affects the game a little bit less, which is positive. And at this stage, a lot of people are feeling maybe a little bit fatigued with normal Infinity. So here's another way in which you can change it up. Let me know if you guys do have any games at 400 points. I might play a couple on TTS at some stage, but there you have it. That's 400 points, 20 orders.